Hello, I'm Andrew Eales, and I've travelled from England to Poland to discover the music of Chopin's land. When we think of Poland, one of the big names that comes straight to mind in the piano literature is, of course, Paderewski, that great concert artist who became a national hero and even served as the Prime Minister of his country after the First World War. In England, one of the pieces that is best known from Paderewski's large output is the Minuet in G, which I'm going to be talking about in this film. But happily, PWM Edition have produced the most beautiful Paderewski, a lovely collection that introduces us to 12 other pieces also by this great composer. Inside the collection, we have some of the polonaises that he wrote. There's the melody from Chant d'un Voyageur, lovely piece there. The Legend, and various other smaller pieces, as well as the Minuet in G itself. The Minuet was first published as part of a collection called Humoresque de Concert, and the title of that collection gives away something of the quirky character and the sense of fun and good humour that pervades these pieces. The opening melody is probably known to you. Here's a reminder. Such a simple idea musically, and yet from it, Paderewski crafts an amazing piece that's not only hugely fun to play, but really enjoyable for audiences in the concert hall, and full of potential for pedagogy. As a teacher, there are many things in this piece which introduce techniques, piano figurations that are essential for the early advanced player to learn. So I would recommend that this piece is suitable after intermediate level, perhaps when a pupil is working for around grade 6 to 7 in the UK. It's too long to appear as an exam piece, but a wonderful concert item. So I'm going to explain what some of those technical things are, some of the big pedagogical ideas that are worth considering in this piece. Just looking at that opening again first, we see in the score that it's marked non-legato. So Paderewski's own recording of this is very instructive alongside the score and is easy to find on Spotify and other sites. We can also see that it's marked mezzo piano. So as we look at that opening, it's really important to not try too hard with the sound, not to force the sound. And yet, these turns, which need to be very elegant, very gracefully fitted in between the other notes, even though the dynamic is quite quiet. So we need to have a positive touch using a little bit of the weight of the hand in order to make that effective. The turn leading to the main note, of course, there. The next answering phrase is actually marked staccato in the music and piano, and yet Paderewski's included some pedalling marks at this point. Those pedalling marks really exist, I think, to join the bass note to these chords. Now, the early advanced player may find those jumps something new that they haven't done particularly before, and we can practice them by turning each of them just into a kind of loop. Judging the distance very carefully until it becomes secure and natural to play it that way. Another thing that we learn from the recording that Paderewski made is that his playing was very sentimental. And so if we play this score too literally, then there's a real danger that the music won't quite come alive in the way that it did when he performed it himself. Some of the ways that he did that include really pulling the time around with a lot of rubato and also spreading chords in places where they're not necessarily written as spread chords. And he does that, in fact, right here on this answering phrase. And that creates instantly this sense of wonderful sort of convivial music making and sentimental sharing of the love of music, doesn't it? When we look at the next section, this is where the fireworks begin to go off. And this, I think, is the passage perhaps that most draws in advanced players thinking, oh, that sounds great, a really fancy piece of music. And yet it's not as difficult as it sounds, so long as we learn the fingering carefully, for example, in his left-hand run that comes next. And which leads into this very bravura octave section. And that brings us back to a wonderful rendition again of the tune. But before it takes off, the right hand literally takes off with this amazing run, which again is a little easier than it sounds, so long as we learn the pattern carefully. The pattern consists basically of a G major scale, starting on D, and then that's repeated up an octave. And then a cascading passage, which is basically made out of a G triad with E added. And so when we put that all together, and so on. And that brings us to a central interlude in the piece, which is marked Con forza la melodia. And this is actually even more sentimental than the section that we've just had. There are two particular tricks that we can use here, both of which Paderewski uses himself in his playing, but neither of which are so common in modern piano playing today, but which were very popular back in that golden age when he was performing. These two tricks will help us really bring this section to life. So the first one is to stagger the hands. And what I mean by that is basically playing the left hand a little bit before the right hand, so that the right hand melody speaks on its own and with added expression. When I demonstrate this to students, I usually exaggerate it just so they get the point. And I'll do that now for you. Have a listen. Of course, that's exaggerated, but I think you get the idea. Now, the other trick is to use what we would call an agogic accent. This is the accent where we don't just play the note louder, but hold it a little longer as well, lingering on that note. Paderewski has written 2 sforzandi in the next 8 bars, and they provide a perfect opportunity for us to use an agogic accent and to really kind of wallow in the expression here. Have a listen. This sentimental interlude soon comes to an end. We have a fanfare which heralds us back towards the main tune. And in fact, we then have a repeat of all of the opening material, including those wonderful flourishes that we've looked at already. So I'm going to skip to the coda now. Now, the coda, the final section in the piece, is marked vivo, meaning we can play quicker at this point. But there's a big challenge in these opening bars. Marked piano, soft. We have a succession of trills in the right hand. And the fingering that's given in the addition makes it quite easy to emphasize the main notes here, because we're told to use the thumb at the start of each trill and then to trill with 2 and 3. Now, when we're trying this out as an idea in a lesson, perhaps we can make a small exercise, just moving down a step at a time back down to G, down to the key note. I'll show you what I mean. When we put that back into the piece, then the emphasis of the thumb actually brings out the main tune, which is hidden in these trills all along. Have a listen. Once we bring the left hand in, it's clear, isn't it? And that takes us into some final runs, which lead to this fabulous conclusion to the piece. Any pianist who's learnt their G major arpeggio well will find that final flourish fairly easy to do. But it's quite interesting to notice that we're not playing with our hands an octave apart in the same way that we might do when learning arpeggios as an exercise. In fact, the left hand is one note ahead of the right. Which I think sounds better than an ordinary arpeggio, in fact. The dynamics here take us down to piano, but you probably noticed when I demonstrated this ending that the chord, including the left hand over, that's marked MF, it's louder, so we can really allow that last note there, the B, the high B, to ring out like a bell. But then the very final chord is marked P, piano, soft. And the pedal releases fairly quickly, making for a very subtle, sophisticated ending to what has been a fabulous piece to play. Paderewski's Minuet in G has been so popular over the years because it's just such fun, whether you're in an audience listening to a performance, a pianist learning the notes, a teacher working on all of the different issues that crop up when looking at the piece. But I hope that, as well as enjoying the Minuet in G, you will take time to explore the other music in this collection, because Paderewski's left us a wonderful treasury of music to enjoy. Thank you for watching.